Hey everyone, welcome to Pit Stops To Podium, the RevPartners podcast, where we talk to execs who've competed and won, taking their companies from high growth to high scale. My name is Brendan Tolleson. I serve as the CEO of RevPartners. I'm delighted to have with me today Donald Kelly for this episode of Pit Stops To Podium. Welcome, Donald.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you, Donald. I know you and I get to serve together in the Revenue Council for HubSpot, so this is a fun opportunity for you and I to do a podcast. So for those that may not know who Donald serves as the founder of Sales Evangelist. And Donald, this is a great opportunity for you to give that pitch on who Sales Evangelist is and why our audience should be excited about it.
Well, as anyone that's in RevOps or anyone that's in sales leadership, the struggle when your team is supposed to build pipeline, they're doing the cold calls, they're sending out emails, but no matter what they're doing, they're still not getting enough deals in the hopper, not 3 to 5xing what's in the pipeline, and then also having a tough time closing that. Well, our team fixed that, whether that's through one-on-one coaching or our group cohort programs or working consulting with organization. We help them to build effective pipeline, try to get sellers to at least 3 to 5x, and then also convert a high percentage of that. And it's a lot of fun. And we do a lot of free content as well with our podcast and some of the other things that we give out.
And Donald, what inspired you to do that? What was the experience you had that said, hey, I need to build this practice to help other companies?
Bro, it wasn't. I wish I could tell you that it was a plan. I was doing software sales, and prior to that, I'd done some stuff in the managed IT world, and then I'd done some things in the healthcare space and selling EHR. And I just had a really tough time, and I did all the dumb stuff, like I broke all the rules and did everything wrong, and banged my head against the wall. Finally, went through some training, saw some success, and I started to just evangelize about selling. And my buddy was like, bro, you should consider a podcast. And I was like, what is a podcast? This was 2012. And fortunately, we started doing it. And then it was all just in right place, right time, because then one of his friends was writing an article for Entrepreneur and said, hey, who are some upcoming podcasters? This new medium. Mentioned me, we got mentioned there, and then people started to find the podcast through Apple Directory and got a coaching client here and there, and eventually got to the point where I was using all my vacation days for speaking at events or working with clients before June. So we didn't have any summer trips, and my wife got frustrated, and we got sponsored as well for the podcast. So it just kind of made sense for us to evaluate, is this viable? So 2015, I made that hard decision to jump ship, and haven't been back since. And it's been growing, and now we have a team of 14 individual contractors and also full-time folks. And we love creating content, and we love helping people improve their sales and building pipeline.
That's great. It's always fun to hear an entrepreneur story, and there's a lot of parallels between how RevPartners started, but it's fun to hear you just, hey, this is I want to say a passion, but it was an interest. And ultimately that led to you having your own business, which is really fun to see. So thanks for sharing. But Donald, before we get into some of those tactics that you help companies implement, we do have a tradition here at Pit Stops To Podium, and that's to get to know our guests outside of work. So we're human beings, not human doers. So what are 3 fun facts our audience should know about you outside of work?
Yeah, fun fact number 1, I was born in Jamaica, moved to the United States when I was a kid, when I was 9. So I chat like a Jamaican sometimes. If you want to go through the rest of the podcast interview and chat like a Jamaican, we can do that, So that's 1. Number 2, I have a wife and a little kid, a little guy. He is 3.5, and we're down here in South Florida. Fun fact number 2. And then fun fact number 3, being in South Florida and from Jamaica, I don't like seafood.
Wow.
So, I know, right? One of those people that take up space in Florida, probably should give it to somebody else. But
well,
just as a kid in Jamaica, we had to clean all the fish and the crabs and stuff. And one day I was just like, I don't think I like this.
I'm probably dating myself a little bit. I don't feel like I'm that old, but I was telling one of our newer employees, I was talking about Cool Runnings, which
man.
I'm assuming you've seen. And I got a lot of blank stares when I was referencing Cool Runnings, and it made my heart very sad because that's an all-time classic.
Isn't that crazy? Us older millennials feel like old people to these Gen Zs. Yes.
I'm learning. I'm older than I thought I was. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit about kind of your background and your family and your distaste for seafood, which is definitely doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I get it. So let's move into the big idea. And so we've talked a little bit about what you do at Sales Evangelist, and I really wanted to isolate more to one topic. I know there's a lot that you talk about and a lot of practical insights, but I think one thing that, especially as we've moved in kind of this digital first type of selling environment, post COVID. Let's talk a little about your social selling framework. I think in the past people probably felt like social was distraction, and now people are starting to see it as an investment. But would love to get your perspective before we get into how they should leverage social, more so why they should leverage social.
Yeah. So I just hope this doesn't come across like a LinkedIn plug. But I am passionate for stuff and I get excited for it. So it's one of those platforms. Here's what I would share. LinkedIn, Gartner actually did a study, and this is post-pandemic. I mean, I think we're still post-pandemic, but it showed that email outreach has gone up by 50% since the pandemic. So since 2020, and so forth. But the reply rates has decreased by 30%, and that's probably gone even further. When I look at my emails, I delete a lot of emails. What gets me sometimes, and I think it's where salespeople get caught up, is that they get amazing subject lines that prompts open. So quick question still gets me every once in a while. I'll open it, but I don't reply to all of those. So we see on on our Apollos or in HubSpot or whatever tool we're using, we see the open rates and then we get all fancy and excited, but we're not getting the high response rate. And this is where a lot of leaders come in. And here's the problem. Those emails don't have any relevance. They don't have relevance, meaning we build a list, we pull it out, and we send it out to everyone, but it doesn't necessarily have relevance to you as the individual seller or individual prospect. And then also, I don't know you, so that also brings up the barrier right out the gate. And then that doesn't lead to there's no form of engagement. Then that doesn't lead to conversation and doesn't lead to appointments. Social is the total opposite, though, what I've seen. If you're not doing spamming, and this is why it works so well, when you are able to build that relationship with someone on a platform, and I don't want to say relationship because it makes it all of a sudden seem like I need to be connected with you for like 10 years. But when I have some kind of relevance to you, when there's some kind of reason, so I might say, for instance, we connected, I saw that you recently had a job change. I dropped a nice little message about that, not to pitch you, but just to make a human-to-human connection like you just did here with me and seafood. But we have some kind of connection. Then we move into the idea of engagement. This is where we once we have some relevance, so I can connect with you for a particular reason. 2, then we can engage and we have conversation going back and forth. Once that starts to happen, the magic is that as a natural byproduct, when I do send my first email, I have a higher chance of the email not only getting open, but also getting a response because they tie back to what we call point of reference. There's something that we connect to. I might say something to the nature of Mary. Again, it's Donald. We talked about me not liking seafood, being here in South Florida. I hope I'll next time you come to Florida, I'll treat you to some of the nice restaurants. And yes, there will be seafood. The reason I'm reaching out is because of XYZ. And now we can tie that back to her role, the relevance to that. But social allowed for that to happen because there's a pool, everybody's gathered. And if you have relatively good content and if you're a human being and not just a pitch fest, it provides that you can start those engagement conversations, and those engagement conversation when translated to email increases a chance. So I am a big proponent of it. There's several strategies that I teach, and we can go into some more of those, but that's on a surface level why social works so much more. And it's the email just automatically comes to the point where people feel like it's like I don't know. We know we're going to get 100 emails a day. We know half of them are going to go into the spam folder, and we know a quarter of those are going to come from our team or more. And then we know we're going to get hit with like another third of those from people who are just like trying to sell us something. So automatically we say the email is an annoyance right out the gate, and we're trying to shoot them like fly. And if that's the case, if I look at it and I see that I don't know you, automatically I see you as interrupting me or distracting or disrupting, and that doesn't make it fun for me to reply to you. So anyways, I've been going on for a minute there. I get too passionate about
it. I think it's definitely true. If I look at my inbox, God, I just I have a problem. I got 12,000 unread messages, but most of those are either some alert through one of our systems, or it's somebody trying to pitch me on something, and I don't even bother to open the email because it's to your point. And I think what you're alluding to is, that people what I'm doing with my inbox is what most people are doing at this point. There's a email fatigue, and it's turning humans, like people, into projects and not the actual relationship. And I think what LinkedIn does is associates that name to an actual person, and it forces a change in approach. So let's talk a little bit more about, you kind of started to itemize a little bit of the approach. I think you talk about connect, share, and engage. So help our audience understand that process of what you seem to be successful in the social engagement space.
So here's the LinkedIn now, today is March 2nd. So 2 days ago, they launched Deep Sales. I had the fortunate opportunity to get access to that for like the past 3 months. It's the new components of Sales Navigator. Absolutely remarkable, just like great stuff. But one of the things that they do, LinkedIn has on their new rollout, they show that they have, I think, close to 900,000 members, like users, 900,000. But here's the crazy part about that: only about maybe about half of those are active, maybe going on LinkedIn once a month. And of that, let's say, so we're looking at 450 million people. Of those 450, only about 2% of those people are actually posting content on the platform regularly being monthly. It's bonkers. It's crazy. It's such a small number of people. But here's the concept why: because so many people on LinkedIn, they feel like it's a professional network, so I don't want to share something that's not too professional. I can do that on Insta or on Facebook, maybe even Twitter, but I'm not going to do that on LinkedIn. I don't want to be called out by my peers. And that's the problem that many people have. So the strategy that we teach people is, one, you need to post content, because if you're posting content, and if it's good content, you have a higher chance of getting those impressions that are being given only to those 2% of people right now. So that's the very, very, very first thing. Whoever's listening to this, even if you're not writing your own stuff, curate content, share something. Number 2 is to connect. I did when people go through our LinkedIn program, I have them take a look at their LinkedIn connections, and I say filter that. Filter by your ideal customers. So for me, it's VPs of sales, directors of sales, CROs, and then we look at it and see how many of those connections actually fall in that category. And it's always fascinating. People are like, oh man, like only 10% or only like 15% or whatnot. So I'm like, why in the world are we connecting with so many of our random people who are not going to be a potential fit for our business? Why are we connecting with these others? And the key there is that if I'm going to share content and only a small percentage of the people on my actual connection are going to see that content, LinkedIn algorithm is going to feed it up to, I need to make sure it's disproportionately in my favor. So the more people that I have in my network that are actually potential customers, that actually are my ICP, the higher chance I have of having people engage with my content. So the critical side there is that you need to connect. So connect with people on LinkedIn. I tell people at least 5 to 10 connection requests per day to people who are your ICPs. And it's a personalized connection request to them. Then you need to make sure you're sharing relevant content, since only 2% of LinkedIn people share content. And then this part where mostly a lot of individuals don't. If they do post, they kind of like post and run, but you need to engage. So whenever somebody posts on your LinkedIn on your post, even if it's like 3 people, even if it's like your mom, just go ahead and engage with those individuals. Ask a question if they share a comment and start engagement. You can then take that into the chat or into the DM, and that starts more conversation. But I promise sellers, and I've seen this over and over and over again, if you want to have success when it comes to social selling, you got to connect with your ideal customer. Make sure a lot of more people in your pool are folks that are going to potentially be customers that can see your content. 2, share relevant content, engaging content. And you have so many tools nowadays to do so. You can go to like Google and search biggest challenge for marketing directors. And then as a byproduct, Google is going to tell you, here's some blogs. And then it's going to go down to what people are searching for when it comes to challenges that marketing directors. And those are the topics that you take and you create posts on relative to, or go back and write down the top 10 issues or top 10 common questions you get on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis from your potential customers or from your folks you serve. And then you could take that and put it into content and format. So let's say, for instance, mine is like, should I do, what's the best way to write a cold email? Then I might say cold email sucks as my subject, as my LinkedIn in all caps. Then I write a post about that. Why people say cold email sucks, but here's how you can fix it. And I might talk about how social selling can help you to make it warm, and then give a call to action at the end. Tell me, am I off on that? Do you have a better tip? Let me know in the comments. But this starts engagement and it starts going, because that's something that people have. But those are 3 strategies, and we can go deeper into each of them. Connect with your ideal customers each day, build up your pool of people, share relevant content, and then start engaging with those people.
I like the, it makes a lot of sense. And I like the practical aspects of it. When you talk about connect, it's, hey, just find 5 people a day that fit your ICP. Then as it relates to share, make it relevant to that audience, and giving people, I think the hard part people have with share is, where do I start? And it's like, don't overthink it. To your point, only 2% are actually sharing anyways. So by even just sharing, you're a differentiator. And then just ways in which you can think through that. And then to your point about engage, because engage, yes, one, it actually helps in your impression in terms of posts, but 2, you're creating that connection you're creating a warmer connection with the person you've already reached out to. To go back to the first point around connect with those 5 people.
Sure.
This goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the whole email piece. I think you kind of talk about point of reference as a really key ingredient when you're doing those connections. What are some tactics that you would recommend to people? So they say, hey, you're right. I go after VP of sales. I look at, companies in 500 to 2,000 employee segment, in this specific, like in B2B tech, as an example. What are some tactics they can take to say, hey, here's how I can get those 5 connections to say yes to that request, as opposed to just that person ignoring it?
All right. So this is where Sales Navigator comes in. So the thing that you want to do here is go into Navigator, and then you can go and build a list of those ICPs. Now they have something called Spotlight in the bottom left-hand corner of when you build a leads list. And what you can filter, and the way we do it, I filter based on 1, people who have been in their role in less than change jobs in the past 30 days or 30 to 90 days. And then I also look at people who have posted in the past 30 days on LinkedIn. I do that purposely because then now I am getting my ICPs who are active on LinkedIn. And if they're posting content, I leverage that post in my connection request or I engage on that. So let's say you just posted about, let's make it up. Let's say you posted about, you guys are going to some conference. You're going to Inbound. Let's say that. So you headed to Inbound and you talked about some of those things on that. See you there. But you posted about that. I might then come back and follow up on that because you're going to have a disproportionate number of people who actually like versus comment. So to grab your attention even more so, at the prospect's name and then comment specifically about that. So if I go to Inbound, I'll say, hey, this is my first year going to Inbound. What would you say is the best way to make sure I maximize my experience there? Now you feel like a freaking celebrity. Like, oh, yeah, this person is asking for insight. Make sure you meet a lot of people, Donald, blah, 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 blah. Boom. So then I drop a personal connection request. Might say, hey, it's Don. Thanks so much for giving me that tip on taking advantage of Inbound. Always looking to learn from other leaders doing amazing things in our space. Permission. I always do this. Always, always. One of my buddies, big shout out to Jared Easley, but I do that every post, every connection. Permission to connect here on LinkedIn. And then the funniest things come back. People is like, permission granted, or for sure, of course. And then you start a conversation. What happens there, and I used to do voice messages, but I want to give a big shout out to Gerard. He just came on my podcast recently. He said, Donald, do more videos. So I send a personal video at that point. I might say, say it's a person's name is Lisa. Hey, Lisa, I just wanted to put a face with a name, let you know that I'm a human. I'm not just like some bot. I'm doing like I'm really doing it. But I just want to put a face with a name. I look forward to seeing you in Inbound. Thanks again for connecting with me. There is no way there's no way at all you're not going to engage back with me. I mean, there's a high percentage. Maybe you don't, but you probably say, of course, Donald, love it. Never seen a video before. Thanks so much for the video. Feel free to reach out any tips or any advice you have. Now I have a plethora of reasons why you're going to respond to my email when I do send that darn thing right now. Am I making sense there?
Yeah, I think it's taking the extra step. I mean,
It is.
I think they're a tool. Okay.
It gets me all excited because nobody does it.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do it because when a BDR or AE, unfortunately, us as leaders, sometimes we want those numbers, or maybe we're getting from the top that we need to get down. So people will then do like the blast. Like, I'm going to do a campaign with 150 folks, but that is tough. If you're going to get a 1% return on that, then that's stupid. Why not just go for like 25 really focused people and get like some more conversations and go deep in those accounts? Because if I'm doing this with like, say, 4 or 5 people inside an organization, if I'm doing like a ABM strategy, I am going to have so much more conversation, a richer opportunity, and I'm going to get more of my emails reply back and more engagement, leads to better demonstrations and so forth. That's the difference. And I'm telling you right now, this is why people are so irritated with emails, and it's only going to get worse. Yeah. I mean, with sellers who are lazy, but if you can come and go a little bit deeper, it's going to put you in a different stratosphere. I promise you, because it works for me and my team. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think I probably shouldn't listen to one of your competitors, but Josh Braun talks about like the be a red X and see a black X. It's just do the extra step. And it's a point of differentiation, and it's the whole work smarter, not harder. Like, you don't have to do the numbers game. You can actually probably do, it's a lot of conversions. And if you're doing it in a better fashion, you can do a lot fewer, but you're ultimately converting those and driving more opportunities for the business. Well, Donald, I really appreciate you stopping by. This is a great opportunity for our audience, rather, just to get some practical insights on how they can leverage a social selling framework to be more effective in the field. If our audience wants to engage with you, what's the next step they can take, whether it's your podcast or getting to learn more about your services?
Yeah, easiest thing is to go to the salesevangelist.com. We have some free stuff there, free courses, as well as you can hit me up on LinkedIn, Donald C. Kelly. You can check out our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search the Sales Evangelist, and you can find me there.
All right, Donald, thanks so much. Really enjoyed it, and let's stay in touch.
Brendan, thanks, man. Appreciate you.